We've got humans, we've got gods, but have we covered a mutant yet? No? Let's fix that. Today, we are going to be covering the head of the X-Men himself, Scott Summers, aka Cyclops. I love doing these little breakdowns and going deeper into their motives and beliefs. I'm excited to share my ramblings with you and would appreciate any support for giving this video a like or subscribing for future content. I'm going to be honest with you. In these mutant breakdowns, I could use the animations. I could. And there are movies for references as well. But can we all agree that those movie versions really weren't that good? Not because of James Marsden. He can only work with what he has. Personally, I'm super excited to see what they do with him now that he's going to be in the Marvel Universe. What I mean by that is by the Doomsday movie. That Doomsday trailer that when you see his powers in action, oh my god. I can't tell you how excited I am for this movie. But there's only a couple of animations that are worth it. And I could use them. Or I could just focus on the primary source and use the comics. Let's do that. There's not a lot out there on the X-Men. We've had a couple of movies, a few animations, but these don't scratch the surface of what you see in the comics. House of M, anyone? But this makes it easy for us to break them down, because there's only one place that's reliable to go. The comics. Speaking of, he's got a 5-issue series out right now that's tackling a lot of the points I'm going to be bringing up, so I suggest going to check that out. It's running from February to June of 2026. As always, here's how we'll break it down. Their story arc and their key moments that shaped them, their personality type and why it fits them so perfectly, and the traumas, wounds, and experiences that drive their behavior. Scott Summers was born in Anchorage, Alaska to Christopher and Catherine Summers. His dad was a test pilot for the U.S. Air Force and loved to fly in his spare time. This turns out to be the pinnacle point in his life. During one of their private flights with his mother, father, and younger brother Alex, they were attacked by a spacecraft and his parents had to make a choice. They had to let them go. His parents were taken captive, which he didn't know the fate of them until much later in his life. Spoiler, his dad's a space pirate, and I find that super cool. During the fall, Scott suffers a head injury that will damage a certain part of his brain and will later affect him in life. He and his brother were separated after the landing, and Scott stayed at the State Home for Foundlings in Omaha, Nebraska. He was put through some pretty rough experiments and manipulations by the administrator, Mr. Milbury, or Mr. Sinister in disguise. Sinister has been obsessed with the Summers for quite some time and took advantage of the opportunity to learn what he could. As Scott grew, he began to develop his mutant powers. His eyes released an uncontrollable beam of concussive force. Remember that accident? Probably could have controlled it had he not had that injury from the plane incident. Also, to clarify, a lot of people think that Scott shoots laser beams from his eyeballs. They do not. There is a difference. In D&D terms, he's a warlock, and he has Eldritch Blast from his eyeballs. Or technically, Eldritch Fire Hose, because he has no limit. He eventually is recruited by Professor Charles Xavier and joins the X-Men with others like Jean Grey, his future wife, and Hank McCoy, or Beast. He is given the name Cyclops for his visor that was created for him to keep his eye beams at bay. Xavier saw something in him and gave him the title Leader of the X-Men, and the rest is history. There's some romance between Jean Grey 2.0, aka Madeline Pryor, and Emma Frost. He has a couple of kids, depending on the timelines. It gets weird. So we've learned who Scott Summers is, but what about who he is? The man has had a lot of trauma, what with being a mutant and just life in general. What kind of personality fits a man who has only known control all of his life? In my opinion, Scott Summers is an ISTJ. Remember who else is an ISTJ from our videos? That's right, Frank Castle, aka the Punisher. So as with Daredevil and Loki being the same personality, you're probably wondering why two men who are completely different can be the same personality. One is a disciplined leader of an entire race. The other is a one-man death squad operating outside every moral framework society has. Well, both men are defined by an almost crushing sense of responsibility. Frank feels responsible for the justice of the people that killed his family. Scott feels responsible for all mutants. They're both deeply private. It took many an issue for Scott to finally say his feelings to Jean out loud, and even then he stays pretty guarded. Frank is the exact same way, never delving into his feelings to anyone. Both are brilliant tacticians and think with an ends justify the means kind of way. So what does ISTJ look like on Scott Summers? Let's break down the letters. Introverted. Scott is deeply introverted to a fault. He doesn't seek social connection, easily struggles to verbalize his words, and is frequently misread by teammates as cold or distant because he prefers his quiet time. He processes things alone. He makes decisions mostly on his own. Even in a room full of people who love him, he often seems fundamentally solitary. Sensing. Scott isn't a dreamer, he's practical. He's logical, a tactician. He deals with what's real, measurable, and can be acted upon. He's not one to think about the what-ifs, he's thinking about the statistics and how to solve them. He wants to know the terrain, the enemy's capabilities, and the variables he can control. You're going to hear that word a lot in this. Control. Thinking. Scott leads with logic and structure over feelings. This doesn't mean he doesn't feel deeply, because he does, but when making decisions, there's no room for those. He will make the hard call if it's necessary. He will accept personal cost if the logic demands it. He will tell you the uncomfortable truth rather than a comforting lie. Instead of saying, hey, we all mess up sometimes, you did good. He'll be the hard guy saying, you messed up. You need to take this more seriously and train more. Judging. Scott craves structure, closure, and order. He is a planner. He's uncomfortable with ambiguity. He wants things decided, organized, and executed. Improvisation exists in his utility belt, but it's not his preference. He wants a plan, and he wants to work with the plan. As we've discussed before, ISTJs are logicians, the tacticianers. They're responsible by nature, dependable, and have deep respect for structure. Clear expectations and organizations are things they thrive in. Hence, Scott as an X-Men. He was asked to join the team at a young age and soon became the leader. Not because he was one of the first, but clearly had that leader vibe. He didn't break under pressure or stress, and while it took some time, the respect of his peers. He was the obvious choice out of the founding X-Men, and he took it seriously. While the others would go out and have fun, he would stay behind because it's what the professor would want. He wasn't flashy or attention-seeking. He knew what control it would take to lead and knew there was no one better. As 16 Personalities states about ISTJs, they can sometimes unfairly misjudge people who don't match their rigorous self-control, suspecting that some people is being lazy or dishonest when that person might actually be coping with other challenges. This shows up in the way that Scott teaches at the Xavier School for Gifted Youngsters. There's no room for failure because failure is a show of your character. In the 60s, the first run of the X-Men, he's shown boosting Beast while they train. But in a couple of issues later, he's ripping into Beast because he's not taking it seriously. Basically what he says is, if I can pull all my effort into it, there's no excuse you can't. Do better. And he does. ISTJs often have a high work ethic and tend to shoulder the job of others or pick up the slack. Everything rests on them, so they can't fail. They have to perform. Scott does this multiple times in his lifespan and making Xavier's dream a reality by putting it in the work to make it real. Or when he creates the X-Force, taking the weight of the necessary decisions so others don't have to be complicit. During the House of X run, he designs the laws, leads the strike teams, coordinates resurrection protocols, and functions as the enforcer of Krakoan society. Xavier and Magneto are the architects. Scott is the one making it work on the ground day after day, taking on the burden himself. No one else could shoulder that much, so he does. But with every individual, there are strengths and weaknesses. While Scott is the backbone of his people, that can wear a person down. So let's take a look at strengths of Cyclops first. Reliability and dependability. The X-Men always know where Scott stands. He doesn't waver, flake, or abandon his post. He's been the backbone of the team for decades. Strategic discipline. His tactical mind is his superpower beyond optic blasts. He turns every conflict into a chess match. Commitment to duty. Even when he disagrees with Xavier, he carries the mission forward. Duty comes before personal comfort, always. Calm under pressure. In crisis, Scott becomes more focused, not less. His introversion and thinking functions make him ice cold when it counts. Integrity. Scott has a strong internal moral code. even when he turns into a revolutionary, post-Schism, his Extinction Teen era. It comes from a consistent set of values, the survival and dignity of mutant kind. And of course, the opposite side of things, his weaknesses. Emotionally unavailable. His partners, Jean Grey, Madeline Pryor, Emma Frost, they all wrestle with his inability to be emotionally present. He cares deeply, but expresses it just terribly. Scott's rigidity can make him a poor collaborator. His conflicts with Wolverine are largely a clash of Scott's structured thinking versus Logan's gut instinct. Tunnel vision. Ends justify the means. During the Avengers vs. X-Men arc, his ISTJ traits curdle. His fixation on duty of mutant kind overrides ethical limits, contributing to his Dark Phoenix moment. Difficulty admitting fault. ISTJs hate being wrong, and Scott is notorious for doubling down. His stoicism can read as arrogance, or being a dick, however you want to put it. Suppressed emotion exploding. Because he bottles everything, when Scott does break, losing Jean, the Madeline Pryor situation, the Phoenix corruption, is catastrophic. Scott is a loyal Boy Scout, doing what needs to be done so that you don't have to think about it. But what made him this way? Surely there has to be reasons for it, right? No one just wakes up and says, you know what? Y'all can't do it, so I'll do it myself and take all the garbage with it. Well, neither did he. We've already talked about his parents and the plane crash, losing both parents at an injury that would later make his entire life harder. It started young. Scott and Alex were pushed out of a burning plane by their parents. Scott spent years in an orphanage alone, believing his parents were dead. For a child with natural ISTJ instincts, this shapes the way as a kid would think. Don't depend on others, control what you can. Structure is safety. Then, after everything with his parents and the crash, he's taken to an orphanage and separated from his younger brother where, guess what? He's manipulated and experimented on by a man known for his lack of morality. Scott was psychologically conditioned by Sinister from childhood. He was shaped into a weapon. This deepens his compulsive need for control. He was controlled, so he controls everything he can now. He refuses to be the victim from this point on. Once he starts growing into his power, he realizes that the plane crash took more than his parents. It took his ability to control his own powers. Scott literally cannot open his eyes without destroying probably everything. In the new run of comics, it says he will destroy a mountain if he opens his eyes. He has to wear a visor or his ruby quartz glasses for the rest of his life, or he will punch a hole through everything, including people. This is the ultimate metaphor for an ISTJ under trauma. Control is not optional. It's survival. His visor is a physical manifestation of the structure his brain demands. And just because he becomes a part of the X-Men, learns to control his powers, and even leads his people, he still is hit with trauma in other aspects of his life, like romance. He loses Jean, the love of his life, multiple times. Each time, he doesn't grieve openly. He compartmentalizes and doubles down on duty. Leadership doesn't have time to mourn. People rely on him too much to stop and cry. This is textbook ISTJ trauma response. Suppress, function, endure. Rinse and repeat. On top of it all, he was handed Xavier's dream of uniting mutants and humans and asked to carry it alone. Duty became dogma. Structure became inflexibility. Stoicism and emotional repression are central. He's distant, introverted, and a man of few words off the battlefield because he's afraid of closeness, whether it's because he's afraid to lose control of his powers or because he'll lose someone else. He channels repressed emotions into work and leadership, keeping others at arm's length. All of this has to lead to something, right? Right. PTSD, anxiety, guilt, it all festers inside of him because there's no room for stopping and talking about it or showing weakness. He blames himself for teammates' deaths like Thunderbird. He experiences identity crisis after being merged with Apocalypse, which leads to self-doubt and altered perspectives, and shows signs of panic or breakdown under pressure. He even has a panic attack at one point because he can't take the pressure any longer. Later runs explore neglected PTSD and how he internalizes losses rather than seeking help. Therapy is healthy, y'all. Get some help. All of this sounds like Scott is some cardboard cutout leader that he does what needs to be done in order to keep his people safe. Which, yeah, the movies didn't really help this, but I promise you that if you give him a chance in the comics, you will not be disappointed by him. Right now, as I said earlier, there is a run of 5 comics with Cyclops being the main focus, which we're on number 4 as of May. I highly recommend reading them because it shows Scott losing the one thing he could rely on to keep his powers at bay, his visors. It teaches him a little bit different of a lesson than what he's been taught his entire life. Yes, control is important, but there are different ways to go about it. He can't rely on structure his entire life because what happens if you lose it? I've been enjoying them, and it's all leading up to future comics like United X-Men and the Apocalypse coming in June, which the United X-Men is on at number 3 this month. Scott Summers has never been the easiest X-Man to love, and that's exactly what makes him so worth understanding. He is a man forged in abandonment, shaped by trauma, and hardwired by personality to respond to all the same way, by working harder, carrying more, and never once asking for help. Every burden that drops, he picks up. Every dream that falters, he props back up. Xavier got to be the visionary. Scott got to be the one who made the vision real. Quietly, thanklessly, and at an enormous personal cost. His ISTJ nature isn't a flaw, and it isn't an excuse. It's a lens. It explains why a man who feels so deeply shows so little, why someone so devoted to others can feel so alone, and why the most disciplined soldier the X-Men ever had was also their most tragic figure. Scott Summers doesn't fall apart when the world gets hard. He just adds it to the pile, adjusts his visors, and keeps moving. And maybe that's the saddest thing about him. Not that no one helped him carry the weight, but that he never would have let them anyway. And that's going to wrap up our episode on Scott Summers. I can't wait to see what they do with the character now that Marvel Studios has him in their hands. If we can glean anything from that little scene we got to see from the trailer, we're about to see the true Cyclops that we deserved from the beginning. And James Marsden can finally shine and show us that he was the right man for the job all along. If you like what we do, smash the like button, subscribe for more Marvel Monday breakdowns, and hit the bell so you never miss an episode. Thank you for sticking it out until the end, and we'll catch you on the next week's episode.